Ever felt frustrated being told PMS, heavy bleeding, and cramping are just normal parts of life? You are not alone. I loathed my monthly cycle for decades. That all changed when I earned 3 health coaching certifications discovering something incredible. Your period is vital. It is an outward sign of your inner health, and it holds the key to unlocking your full potential. I've been there battling heavy, painful periods, and I turn them into cycles with minimal PMS and cramping. Today, I'm on a mission to share that information with you. Pour a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and grab your headphones as we embark on a candid and empowering journey of self-discovery. Together, we'll demystify menstrual cycles, explore cyclical living, delve into natural birth control, and guide parents through those crucial period talks with tweens and teens. It's time to break the taboo around menstruation and embrace the wisdom it holds. I'm your host, Heather Almendinger, and this is the Embracing Flow podcast. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Embracing Flow. I'd like to introduce our guest today, an expert at Embracing Flow, Brittney Hobbs. Welcome, Brittney. Thank you so much for joining us on Embracing Flow. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. Listeners, this is why I have Brittney on today. She is a doctor, and she is a somatic soul guide, wellness consultant, and a trained clinical pharmacist who helps high-achieving women decode the deeper root causes of pain, fatigue, tension through a powerful blend of somatic healing, energetic precision, and wellness wisdom. There is a lot of questions on exactly what it is you do in that bio, and we are going to definitely dive into that in just a few minutes. But before we do, would you be open to sharing a cycle story with us, and about what age did you start cycling?
Yeah, so if memory serves me correctly, I was probably between 12 and 13 when I started cycling. And a cycle story. So thinking back to the age of 13, 14, and being on a dance team, it was really challenging, but we had these wind pants. Do you remember those? They were like water resistant. And, and so
Yes, I
those,
do.
because my cycle was really heavy even from the beginning, when I would have it, I would wear those pants because I didn't have to worry about anything that could happen. And so those, like for me, I'm like, oh, thank goodness those were in style. And that was like the cool thing to show that I was on the dance team, because those pants saved me more than one time because of that waterproof lining that they had. So not only did nothing get in, but nothing got out either.
A very fortunate piece of wardrobe you had there that I'm pretty sure most of the listeners have not had the privilege of having. I really wish I would have had several pairs of those in my capsule when I was younger. Oh my goodness. So, how did you get into it, and exactly what is it that you do?
Yeah, great question. So I got into pursuing, I knew I wanted to do healthcare or to be in the health and wellness industry even back in high school. And so I started down that path at the age of 18, which was far before I knew who I truly was. So off I went naively down that path and became a pharmacist. And I got out, did residency, and immediately fell in love with helping people with acute pain. And then that later transitioned into chronic pain. And mostly because I wanted to be on the side of things where I could truly help shift the needle and not just use medications to suppress the symptoms. And that doesn't really happen in the hospital setting. And then once I was in the ambulatory care setting or in the clinic setting and working with patients, it still was very clear to me that the passive approach to managing or suppressing symptoms was not moving the needle. And so then I really started diving deep into, okay, what will truly move the needle? How can we help these people move beyond these symptoms and know that they can have a life that isn't about grieving this pain that lasts forever and isn't about just accepting it and taking it as this really sad diagnosis. But I was like, no, this is possible to heal. And that's what took me down this path of nervous system regulation and somatic healing. And really, I came to this knowing of our body being this living library and how it stores every life experience that we've ever had. And it also has the potential, which is being shown by science now, that we can also store in our cells and our DNA the experiences and the patterns and the trauma from potentially going back 7 generations. And so, how do we heal that if we can't logically connect to those things? And it really comes down to how do we cultivate this sense of safety with our own bodies, and how do we go into the body to allow those messages and those patterns to come up out of our subconscious and come to our conscious awareness so that we can start to shift the way we respond to life, both internally and externally.
As I'm listening to you explaining what you do and how you got to where you're at, I'm currently reading Emotions Buried Alive Never Die, I believe is the title. And it explains how mothers, when they are pregnant, even before they may even know they're pregnant, the test still hasn't been positive, how she's feeling plays a role in the development of that embryo and in the mitochondria and in the DNA in the cells of that embryo, and how pregnancy progresses, and how if she's stressed about something financially or worried, or is she happy and everything's going great? Is it a beautiful pregnancy, a relatively easy pregnancy, and how her emotions are impacting the development of that child? So it's what you're saying is definitely hitting science. It's definitely there, and it's it is bringing that unconscious, how we behave. We don't always realize where it came from. We've just known that it's been there, but why is it there? And bringing that subconscious to the conscious, which it is a lot of inner work. I know it's not an easy thing, which then I believe that goes into the somatic area of what you do. Can you explain what somatic is? Because I know that's one of the other big buzzwords right now. And we see the different retreats where there are women out in the woods finding a big stick and beating the ground or throwing rocks, and they're just getting all of this aggression out, and then they're just crumbling to the ground in tears.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if that is part of that, if that's what we're supposed to think of when it comes to somatic work, or is it stretching? What exactly is somatic work? And then what is it?
So, somatic really at its core is about the body, right? And so, the way that I guide women into somatic work is, yeah, it's not about being in the woods, taking anger out on anything. It's really an inside job of how do they start to develop this relationship with the inner world, because it's not easy. We keep ourselves very busy and distracted because so many of us feel uncomfortable with that silence and that inner critic, and maybe some really big emotions that are stuck in our body that we don't even identify as being emotions stuck in the body. We just feel like this thing that we need to stay distracted from. And I look at it as gently guiding somebody into the sensations in the body. Because so many times when we have discomfort or pain or fatigue or whatever it is, or if we're even talking about menstrual cramps or backaches or the hormonal headaches, all the things, the last thing that we want to do is be with that. We want to fix it. We want to get rid of it. We want to be as far away from it as possible. And what I think about with that is, what message is that delivering to our body? It's here trying to bring a message to us that something is out of balance, that needs our attention. And if we're like, I want to get as far away from you as possible, then it's going to feel like it needs to get louder in that message. I don't think you heard me that first time. Let's circle back and try this again. And so the more that we can, before our pain or our discomfort or anxiety or whatever word we want to fill in there gets high, or gets to the part where it's hard for us to cope with it, we want to be able to tune into it and be with it when it's small or little. And that starts with, okay, what am I feeling in my body right now? Where am I feeling it? And it could be as simple, if that feels like too much, it could be as simple as, okay, can I feel my clothing touching every part of my body that it could possibly be touching right now? Or are there places that are numb or that I can't connect to? Or can I feel my back up against this chair or my feet on the ground? So it's starting these little baby steps of, how can I connect with this vessel that my soul is housed in, and how deeply can I get to know it? And it starts with these really small little baby steps, and that's the sensations. However shallow or deep we have the capacity to go into. And for each one of us, that's different. For some of us, it's just feeling our butt in our seat. And for others, it can be going as deep as this sensation, but then it brings up this story or this feeling. And now that's connected to this part of my body that is connected to this story or this belief system. So there's a lot that can unfold as we develop that relationship, but it all is really individualized to where each one of us is at and what capacity we have to hold space for whatever the body wants to bring to our awareness.
For those that are just starting that and want to sit in understanding, just to begin the process, is there a certain length of time that you would suggest? Is it just 2 minutes in the morning when you're waking up? Is it whenever you're starting to feel some sort of emotion that could grow into a bigger emotion? Because I know a lot of us is, oh, that's just another thing to put on my to-do list, or I feel this, but right now I don't have the time to do it. How do we slow that down and know really where we're at and reduce that explosion later on? Is there a certain amount of time we need, or is it whatever the body's telling us?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. And I think that's the tricky part, is so many of us have these perfectionistic tendencies. And when we add another to do to our to-do list, and then we don't meet it, or we feel like we're not doing it wrong, right? It starts to have the opposite effect of what was actually needed. And for each one of us, it is different on what that need is. And in the work that I do with women, I pull in other things to figure out, is it that you need to be still and be with yourself? Or is it that you need to be out and walking or biking or doing something more physical to get into this space out of the mind and into the body? There's a whole host of other things that might be needed, but to really individualize that. And so, generically speaking, what I would say is, I wouldn't put a time limit on it. What I would say is to start with maybe just that hand on the heart and be like, okay, I'm here with you, body. What can I notice right now? Maybe it's a quickening because of that anxiety. Maybe there's like a buzzing or a tightness in the chest, and be like, okay, I feel that. And now I'm going to, or maybe there's a heaviness in a fatigue. And again, it's just that I'm here with you. So it can be this 10-second check-in, and that can be maybe once we hop in the shower, we do that just thing while our hair is getting wet, or maybe it's we're sitting in our car and we're we just parked and we're about to walk into work or the grocery store. And before we get out, we do that. We're just like, how am I feeling right now? You know, it doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing. It can just be these quick little check-ins. And for me, I normally set a little reminder on my phone that goes off like 3 times a day when I get out of the habit of doing this. I'm like, oh, I need to go back to that because this thing is starting to happen in my body. And then it'll go off and I'm like, oh, thank you. Okay, let's check in. And again, it can be this 10-second thing. And as that starts to build, then maybe you're like, okay, I want to expand this to a full minute because I want to add this thing in that I feel like my body is needing based on what I'm noticing in these sensations or in these feelings or that sort of thing.
I love that it can be a very short, I'm going to check in 10 seconds. I'm sure you saw that right before we started recording. I was just like, all right. I always do a shake off or a little bit of breathing before I hit that record button to, it's that signal in my body, okay, you're in a safe space. When we don't have that, the body shares signals with us that we really need to start doing this. What happens when we choose to ignore those little tiny pop-up messages and ignore that that ding on the phone to remind us to check in? And we're like, I don't have time for that right now. I'll do it later. I don't have time. And here it is. What happens? What do you see in your body? And what have you seen in other women's bodies that happens when we choose to realize the significance of that 10-second check-in?
Yeah. So, what I notice in myself, but also in the clients and the patients that I've worked with over the years, is our body is really brilliant and it is determined to be heard. And that determination shows up as those symptoms growing louder or getting more intense or becoming more frequent, or maybe other symptoms start to get added on to that because ultimately it is trying to deliver this message that something is out of balance, or maybe many somethings are out of balance, and we need to address those. Otherwise, it's just going to snowball, right? And it's going to get bigger. And I really want to support people and women in particular, because I'm a woman, so I love helping other women. I really want to reach them before it turns into a chronic illness or some sort of chronic condition. I want to be more on the preventative side for them and help them form this relationship while it is still reversible. And not to say chronic conditions aren't reversible, it takes more time than when we catch it sooner. And that's why I love these types of conversations, because we reach more people and get that knowing out there so that they do become aware that you get this diagnosis. It doesn't mean that you just have to accept it and take this medication or do this thing, that the body, it has these incredible capacities to heal itself, but it takes us slowing down and becoming present with it and forming this relationship to increase that sense of safety. Because if we don't feel safe with a stranger, we're not going to share our life story with them, right? We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all these things that are down in the dark for a reason. And our body's going to be the same way. If it doesn't feel safe with us, if it doesn't feel like we have the care for it, right? That we're like, oh yeah, I am listening. Tell me all of your deepest, darkest secrets, and I'm going to do something about it, or I'm going to at least be here and love you and accept you, then it's going to keep all of that tamped down. And I think about a lot of us carry around a lot of tension. And I think of that as our muscles. They're like contracting and holding all of that in until it feels safe for it to let that up and be like, okay, now I trust that you have me and I can let go of this and I can let this come up to your awareness to be addressed in some fashion. But until then, our body is going to treat us like a stranger and be like, heck no, we're just going to keep getting tighter and tenser and more heavy or more fatigued, trying to hold this all in until you're ready to listen to us and be with us.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that pain and the inflammation and all of that, the symptoms of that start expressing themselves, and where you're getting a lot of your clients, I'm tired of feeling sick and tired. I'm tired of being in pain. Is that also part of the energetic blueprint of and decoding that energetic blueprint of a woman? Is that going along with that, or is that something completely different?
Yeah, so looking at the energetic blueprint, over the years, I have really studied some of the different. So, looking at astrology and human design, I don't know if you're familiar with those, but in studying those, I have come to find that they are incredibly accurate, astrology in particular, at what is going on under the surface, what's in those subconscious realms, what are we here to learn? And that, and also, again, each of us is so unique and so individualized that it's really easy for us. There's so much on the internet now, and we see that, oh, this thing is working for this person over here. I'm going to try that and see if it works for me. And we move on down the line, like, okay, that didn't work, and get really frustrated and think it's our fault or whatever. And then we move to the next thing and try that. And the thing is that we are each so different that just because it worked for that person, unfortunately, it doesn't mean that it's going to work for us, because we have different subconscious patterns. We have different inner voices. We have different levels of how we cope and express our emotions, and in where how active is the ego part of us, and all these different pieces that intermix. And when I use those things as a tool, it helps me to really, as I'm listening to the story of a woman and what she's sharing with me and her struggles, and these life patterns start to become apparent. And I can pull this over here, speaking about the astrology as an example. And it helps me guide my questions, but it also helps to bring some of these subconscious things to the conscious awareness of the woman, where she's, oh, that it's like a ding, like that's it. I couldn't name that. And or maybe it's an assumption that everybody feels that way or is dealing with those things, and it's not. And so being able to utilize that helps me to help them to create these really individualized, unique support systems and guidance into the body, and things to bring into their daily routine that is really unique and supportive to who they are. And if we talk about the women, the book that you're reading, and how the fetuses are impacted by the womb and the whole body of the mom, I think about each of us, we're our own mini universe inside, right? We're actually 99.9% space or something like that. And each of our little atoms in our cells are all these rotating planets within us. And I've come to find that it's not that far-fetched to think that this bigger universe that we live in is impacting us the same as that bigger universe of the mother impacted us. And now here we are with all of our stories and all these things that impacted us. And each of these tools is like that next thing that helps guide us, or it's almost like this user manual for our unique body that we never got and we were never taught. And so how can we support ourselves? And so that's part of that energetic blueprint. Is I look at what does it look like for you to truly feel emotionally taken care of? And how does it feel are you somebody who needs more movement, or are you somebody who actually needs more rest, or what is soothing for you? And like all these different pieces that I pull together to create this energetic blueprint, but it's also in co-creation with the woman and her story and what she needs, and weaving that all together.
That sounds like a beautiful tapestry. It really truly does. I have an acquaintance of mine who does human design, and she, I did a brief consultation with her. She asked about my date of birth, about what time I was born, and I believe maybe the location, but I don't remember if that was part of it. But what she pulled up, I don't remember the name of what I fell under, like what the category was. But I
Mm.
remember her saying, you can talk about what you do if somebody asks, but you don't go out and tell people necessarily what you do because you feel as though you're bragging about what
Mm.
you do. And I'm sitting there, and when she said that, I was like, hold on, you found that out because of my birthday and some funky lined thing that looks like a person.
The body graph.
Yes. And she's, yes. And she's, I can tell you so much more about yourself. I was like, this
Mm.
is fascinating by
Mm.
how you said it's the universe of what biology brought to us to make us who we are. But then not just the biological part, it was the environment of where we first started growing, and then the environment of where we came into. And so it is so many different universes, and how our bodies, each cell determines how to process that emotion that was shown to us or that environment that we were in. It really is truly fascinating how all of that really plays a role in who we currently are and how we can change how we do things or where we want to go, that we're not in 30 minutes. I could learn something, I can hear something that you say, and it will change my perspective on something from that point forward. And it can change how people perceive me. It can change my perception of how I see others. So it really, truly is amazing how we can change very quickly, both positively and negatively.
Yeah, exactly. And I think about human design is big on conditioning. What is inherently us versus what did our environment condition on top of us to make us fit in our little boxes, and that's a part of what I love about it is if a woman is feeling burnt out or run down, what is the reason behind that? Is part of that because she's trying to fit into this box and she's doing the hustle, but she's somebody who maybe can get 3 hours of work done in what it takes everybody else 8 to 10 hours done, and then she's meant to rest and fill her cup in other ways, but yet she's still trying to do this 8 to 10 hour hustle every single day and never having time to come home to herself or home to her soul to fuel that cup up. And so she's just getting super depleted. And part of using these different systems helps us to have a better understanding or a better idea of what's authentic to you, and what can we support you in letting go of or doing these tiny little, even just micro shifts, right? Because I love the thought. I'm somebody who is all or nothing. My husband laughs at me all the time because I'll be like, okay, I'm overhauling this whole thing. And but that creates a lot of overwhelm and it usually doesn't end up successful. And so what I've found through trial and error is doing these little micro shifts. If I just adjust this one thing this much and I take it out, like all of a sudden I'm on a drastically different path versus if I overhaul it this way, but then I just shut down and come back to here, I'm never truly moving that needle. But if I do one thing this day and get it down to where it feels completely normal, and then I can do this a little bit more and this a little bit, it becomes a much more sustainable change that we can do on returning to who am I underneath all of this, these patterns and these conditions and these inherited belief systems.
If we're sitting and we're listening to our bodies and it's saying this tradition that you grew up on, you've got to let that go. It's not benefiting you anymore, but it's connected to those ancestors and you don't want to forget them. Is there a way to keep that, to give it more of an unconditional love, to be able to break from that negativity, but keep the unconditional love for it?
Yeah, and I guess what I would say, are there pieces of it that are supportive or that allow you to feel connected? And maybe it's not the whole piece of whatever it is that's coming up. And yeah, I think with each generation, we are learning how to do something better than the previous generation. When I think about even parenting, I feel like I've leveled up in a way on parenting my children, and I know they're going to level up in a way to parent their children. And I know my parents, they definitely leveled up from how they were parented and so on. And I'm sure it goes back several generations, and it doesn't take away from the love that we have for them. And we know that they were doing the best that they could with what they had. And it's up to us to take that and run with it and turn it into something that is more supportive or that is better suited for us. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. It can be, what does serve me with this, or what did serve me in honoring that, or adjusting it to fit with what's needed now.
I love that explanation because it goes into with those that had the trauma in their lives with their parents. There's a quote that you have that healing isn't logical, it's cellular when it comes to trauma in the body. Would, can you explain what is meant by that?
Yeah, I think there are the really big kind of life-changing traumas, and then there are the smaller traumas that maybe happen multiple times repeatedly over and over in life, and that adds up into who we are. And I think it all comes down to our nervous system and how that innervates every piece of us. And our nervous system's whole responsibility is to keep us alive. And it doesn't work on a conscious level, it works on a subconscious level. And it is taking into account, again, every life experience we've ever had. And it goes back to that ancestral, what's in our cells, what's in our DNA coming from past generations. It takes that into account also because it's aware of all of that going on. We're not, but our nervous system is. And the way that I also think about, like, how does it do that, is that same system is also running our heart, for example, right? None of us have to think about, okay, I'm going to do this activity, so my heart rate needs to be this, and I need to turn this switch to make it go up. It just automatically happens. Like, we start walking up a hill and our heart rate is cranking up to make sure everything stays perfusing in the way that it needs to perfuse. And in our nervous system, it's driving that fight or flight system in the same way. And it can't honestly tell the difference of whether we're about to be eaten by a tiger or whether we're really angry about somebody just cutting us off and almost crashing into our car, right? They both feel the same type of threat level, and we have the same cascade of events go through our system. And so we can leave that in the subconscious realm and just let our body drive the car and keep reacting to these past events. Because again, our nervous system has created its understanding from everything that's happened in the past. It doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. It doesn't really care what's going to happen in the future. It's going to keep responding the way that it did or the way it feels it should have based on these past experiences. And so until we can be with those experiences and bring these different awarenesses to our conscious mind, we're not going to be able to shift them. And that's what I mean by healing isn't logical, because we don't understand all that is hidden within this nervous system, that's hidden within our DNA. And that's why we really do have to form this connection with our body, and why we do need to use some of these other outside tools that give us insight into ourselves, kind of like those user manuals, so that we can heal at that cellular level outside of logic. We're going into this mini universe. It doesn't make sense. Like, we look at our body, I'm completely thick, and yet they tell us that we're 99.9% space. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. And yet we have to adapt and be like, okay, we still don't know everything from a science perspective, but we all have this sense of, we have intuition, and we have these different connections that we can tap into. But it takes us slowing down, and it takes us cultivating this deep presence, even if it's only 10 seconds at a time.
I love how we have come complete full circle. With that whole 10 seconds, we hear about giving others space for them to share with us. And today we're just learning to be able to give our own body space. We don't need somebody to give us space. We have the ability ourselves to give our body a safe space. Since we have come around full circle, is there anything that we have not discussed that you believe would be really good for the listeners to hear and think about?
Yeah, I think, something that you were describing as we're coming full circle, and how simple it is to sit and be with ourselves. And yet it seems so hard to carve that time out and to prioritize it. And in part, so many of us have been trained to, okay, I need to buy this thing. I need that quick fix. I need these supplements. I need to do this routine. And that all seems more tangible, right? Oh, that's going to fix me, and it's going to do it quickly. But being in the world of healthcare, some of those things do have their places and are needed, but they're not the solution. They're the Band-Aid that gives you some relief so that you have the bandwidth to now cultivate that relationship with self. And so I think that's a really important piece to know. And maybe the visual that I'll leave your listeners with, in how I've come to think about it, in terms of that passive reaching out for something to fix us, or chasing that thing to fix us, or expecting somebody else to fix us, is like having this stagnant pool of water, right? So this like kind of danky pond that has a lot going on in it, and is not necessarily the thing you want to go jumping in and swimming around in. And if we take that and we're like, okay, maybe if I add a little of this and I do a little of that, like, it's going to become this crystal clear, like, beautiful thing again. And that the reality of that is just, it's not going to happen. We can't add things to this and expect change. We're just going to add more gunk in there and mess things around, but it's all going to be the same as a whole. It might be smell better for a little bit or something like that. Versus if we take change, and again, it comes to that moving the needle a little bit, but if we think about, I live in Montana, where all the snow is melting off the mountains at the moment. So if we think about all of that snow up there, and it just starts one drip coming down, one change, doesn't seem like a big thing, but that then meets up with these other changes, that becomes a stream that then flows into this river, that now makes its way down to the ocean and has become this whole big, completely different, salty thing. It completely transforms itself by doing these little things, and it's this clear, beautiful pathway that happens, but it happens with one little tiny snowflake melting, or maybe a little cluster of snowflakes melting, to create this whole system that travels from way up high all the way down to sea level. And that's what I think about when we talk about going into the body and cultivating that relationship with ourselves, is we're clearing out the gunk. We're no longer going to be that stagnant body of water that's holding all of this cringy stuff that you don't know what's swimming under in the reeds, and you don't want something brushes against your toe and you're, oh. If we go into the body, we're clearing that out, and where all of a sudden we're going to start moving the needle towards that crystal clear mountain creek flowing through, right? By making these tiny little changes, now that stagnant body of water is being washed away and cleansed and becoming something new.
I love that visualization. I've been to Montana in June where there is still snow. I enjoyed visiting there. I can see why it's called Big Sky Country.
Yeah.
Beautiful state. If you haven't traveled to Montana, it's a beautiful state, and there are so many really cool things to do there. As we are wrapping up, where can individuals find more about you and what you do with somatic work, human design, decoding that energetic blueprint? There's so many things that you bring to the table. And where can individuals find more?
Yeah, so the easiest way is probably on my website, brittneyhobbs.com, which is BrittneyHobbs.com. And then Instagram is the other place that I spend at least some of my time. And that's at brittney.hobbs. You can find me there. And I would love to hear questions or how any of this resonated or where clarification is needed. But those are the two places I think it's easiest to track me down.
I love it. You have given us so much information and so many beautiful visions and or visualizations and tidbits, golden nuggets. Is there any additional wise words of wisdom you would like to take with us?
Yeah, I just really want to encourage that brave step of finding those few seconds a day of hand on the heart, right? That's more of a connection to our soul. It drops us out of living in our head most of the time, and it drops us back down into this body, into where the soul is, and start treating your body as if it's another person and it's the most beloved person that you know, or maybe it's a little puppy dog, whatever brings out that sense of love and compassion. Start playing around with what type of relationship do you want with your body, and how can you practice carving out just a little bit of time to develop that and show your body that I am here for you. I am listening to you. Let's kick this off.
I love that. And it takes 30 seconds a day. Less than using the restroom.
And you can even combine the two.
It's 30 seconds a day. I don't know of anybody who doesn't have 30 seconds a day. 3 10-second spots. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Brittney, for taking us on this enlightening journey into honoring and getting to know our body, because that's basically what we spoke about, is just giving our body space to discover who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a beautiful journey, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's the conversation I love having the most, and thank you for hosting it and guiding us through it.
That has been my pleasure. All the links that we had mentioned can be found in the show notes. Thank you, listeners, for spending your time with us today. If you found a nugget of wisdom or a moment of empowerment, our mission is accomplished. Do you know someone who could benefit from this information? Please share Embracing Flow with them. In every phase, embrace it, love it, crown it, and be vividous. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, submit a rating and review, and share it with your friends. Visit my website, embracingflowpodcast.com, to receive your free guide on 4 ways to decrease PMS. The link is in the show notes. Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and always be vividous.